I lemon teched 5 grams of mushrooms and met my younger self. I'd been holding on to the mushrooms for months, 5 grams of dried psilocybin, waiting for the right moment. And for some reason, I chose a thunderstorm. I was house-sitting for my parents, alone in the home I grew up in, and something about the creak of the wood floors and the smell of the rain through the old screen door made it feel like the past was leaking through the walls. I lemon-teched the whole dose, ground them fine, soaked them in lemon juice for 20 minutes, then chased it down with water while sitting cross-legged on the living room carpet, exactly where I used to build blanket forts as a kid. No music, no lights, just the sound of the storm outside and the low hum of a place that hadn't truly changed in over 2 decades. It didn't take long to come on. 15 minutes in, my hands felt rubbery, my spine buzzed, the shadows in the hallway thickened like syrup. I laid back, stared at the popcorn ceiling, and watched it melt into honeycomb. The house started breathing. Not metaphorically, visibly. The wallpaper pulsed with each inhale. The vents whispered. The storm outside grew louder, but not angrier. It sounded like it was laughing, like the thunder was some private joke between the clouds. That's when I felt the first ripple, a memory sliding sideways into reality. I saw myself as a child run past the hallway in a red sweater I hadn't thought about in 20 years. I blinked, and he was gone. But the floor still echoed with footsteps that weren't mine. I stood up to follow, feeling like the house was guiding me, not in a threatening way, just curious, like it had been waiting for this. I walked past my old bedroom, paused at the door, and saw something that made me freeze. The light was on inside. I hadn't turned it on. I hadn't been in that room in years. I opened the door, and everything was exactly as it had been when I was 11. Posters on the wall, glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, the same warped desk I'd carved my name into. But there was one thing off. The bed was made perfectly, but there was something under the blanket. A lump, small, motionless. I stared at it, heartbeat rising, and whispered, "Hello?" just to prove I still had a voice. The lump didn't move. I took a step forward, but the hallway behind me warped. The carpet rolled like waves, and the walls stretched up and away like I was in a cathedral of my own childhood. The storm outside cracked again, and I swear the lightning flashed in sync with my fear. I backed out of the room and closed the door. I couldn't look at it again. Not yet. I turned and walked to the kitchen. The tile floor was glowing faintly green. The sink faucet was dripping, and each drop turned into a tiny version of my face before hitting the drain. I laughed, but it came out wrong, like a child trying to mimic an adult. I sat on the linoleum and cried for reasons I couldn't name. Then I felt a hand on my shoulder. Not physically, but the weight of one. Like something was saying, "You're doing it." I closed my eyes, and the entire house flipped inside out. I was no longer in it. It was in me. Rooms bloomed in my chest. Staircases spiraled through my spine. I saw moments from my childhood replay like projections on the inside of my skull. My father lifting me onto his shoulders. My mother reading to me during storms just like this one. My dog, long dead, licking peanut butter off my fingers. All these little fragments glowing, looping, then fading. But underneath it all was something else. A memory I didn't want. One I'd buried. I was hiding under the kitchen table, maybe 6 or 7, listening to my parents fight in the next room. I could hear every word. And in the memory, I turned and looked directly at my tripping self. No confusion, no fear, just recognition. And I said, "You made it back." Then everything fractured. The storm surged. The house flickered. I was on the ceiling, then the floor, then both. The walls pulsed with symbols, ancient and personal, like dream math. I saw a version of myself, older, bald, smiling gently with someone I didn't recognize. I saw another version screaming into an empty room. I saw me dissolving into ash on the couch. Each one felt real, possible, waiting. Then the house went silent. Not quiet, dead. No wind, no rain, no hum. I stood in the living room, and the furniture was gone. Just empty carpet, and in the middle was the blanket fort. My blanket fort, the one I built over and over when I was 9. It was glowing faintly, like memory itself. I crawled inside and found a flashlight and a stack of drawings. My drawings. Crude, childlike, full of dragons and spaceships and a version of me smiling beside a giant snake. I flipped through them and felt something break open in my chest. Grief, maybe, or awe, or both. Then I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, and there was no one there. But the blanket lifted slightly, and something crawled in beside me. It was the lump from the bed. But now it had a face. Mine. Younger. Sad. It looked at me and whispered, "I never left." I held him. I said, "I'm sorry." He said, "It's okay. You came back." Then he vanished, dissolved into sparkles, and the house exhaled. The lights flickered back on. The rain resumed. The heartbeat of the place settled into something gentle. I sat in the middle of the living room floor until sunrise, watching the light creep across the same walls I'd stared at as a child. The mushrooms faded slowly, like the tide rolling out. The magic left with grace. When I stood up, I felt taller than I'd ever felt in that house. Not physically, just different, like something had been integrated. I checked the old bedroom again. The door was closed. The bed was empty. The light was off. But the desk had a new drawing on it. Just a stick figure holding a flashlight, standing in front of a house with a glowing roof. I smiled, closed the door, and walked back into the kitchen, where the sunlight hit the tiles like they'd never been touched by night. Something in me had changed. Or maybe something just came home.